I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, honestly. We'd been married for almost 5 years now, and I thought I knew everything about Julia, my wife, my partner in this crazy interstellar journey. We signed up for this colonization mission months ago, knowing that we'd be spending years in deep space before even reaching the new world. At first, everything was smooth. It was tough sometimes, missing Earth, missing normal life, but we had each other. Or so I thought. The first signs of trouble started subtly. Julia started acting weird during her scheduled cryosleep cycles. Little things. She'd be more irritable, snapping at me over nothing. When I'd ask if she was okay, she'd brush it off, say she was just tired or stressed from the long trip. But I knew her well enough to see that something was off. She got defensive every time I pressed her about it, and that only made me more suspicious. She's a bitchy woman, always had a sharp tongue, but this wasn't her typical attitude. It was like she was hiding something. Then came the oddities with her cryopod. I'd been reviewing the ship logs just out of curiosity when I noticed something strange. Her pod showed a dual occupancy, like someone else had been in there with her during my scheduled sleep cycles. I thought maybe it was an error, a glitch in the system at first, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was deliberate. I started digging deeper into the logs, trying to find any pattern or explanation. That's when I found the real shocker. The logs showed unauthorized access, not just once but multiple times. Someone had been in her pod with her when I was supposed to be in mine. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this? I mean, we're hundreds of thousands of miles from Earth, on a ship designed to be our home for the next decade, and she's screwing around behind my back like some teenager. I felt this strange mixture of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. I kept telling myself it was probably a mistake, maybe some technical error, but deep down I knew this was her. Julia has always been a bitchy, manipulative woman, and now I was seeing her true colors. I waited a couple of days, trying to figure out what to do, but the urge to confront her grew stronger. I couldn't just sit on this knowledge and pretend everything was fine. One night, I finally decided to ask her straight up. I called her into the control room where I'd been reviewing the logs, my hands trembling a little. She sauntered in, giving me that typical smirk, the one that makes you want to punch her sometimes. "What's up?" she said, voice sweet but with a sharp edge underneath. I looked her right in the eye and asked, "Julia, what's going on with your cryosleep pod? I've seen the logs. You've been in there with someone else. Care to explain?" Her face flickered for a moment, a flash of annoyance and something else I couldn't quite read. She chuckled, that bitchy little laugh that always grated on my nerves. "Oh, come on, it's probably a glitch. Maybe the system screwed up or someone else was in there by mistake. You know how unreliable this tech is." She waved her hand dismissively, but her eyes darted away for a split second. That was her tell, the guilty look she always tried to hide. I pressed her further. "Don't lie to me, Julia. I know someone been in there with you. Multiple times. Who is it? Some technician. Is that why you're so bitchy all the time? Because you're cheating on me?" Her face hardened and she shot back. "You really think I'd cheat? You're paranoid, that's all. Maybe you're the one who's been distant. I've had enough of your accusations. If you're so concerned, maybe you should check the logs yourselves instead of jumping to crazy conclusions." Her tone was dismissive, but I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She was lying, I knew it, and I was furious. I felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. This wasn't just some fling or casual affair. This was betrayal at the biggest level, and I was powerless to do anything but watch her brush it off, acting as if she didn't care. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt this deep, aching pain in my chest, like someone had punched me in the guts. I'd trusted her, even when I had doubts. I'd always believed we'd get through anything, but now I was staring at the woman I loved, knowing she'd been secretly sleeping with some technician behind my back, and not just sleeping, she lied about it. She told me it was all in my head, that I was paranoid, but I knew better. I had seen the logs and I knew the truth. Every instinct told me I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to decide what to do next. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't concentrate on anything other than that betrayal. Every time I looked at Julia, I saw her differently. The way she lied so easily, The way her eyes darted away when I pressed her, she was a master manipulator. And I realized I'd been a fool to think we had some perfect, unbreakable marriage. Not when she was sneaking around behind my back, lying about everything. I kept replaying that night in my head, trying to find some way to rationalize it, some excuse to make her innocent. But there was no way around it. I knew she had been cheating on me with the cryo technician, Mark. The logs proved it. Every clue pointed to her, and yet she kept denying it. She kept insisting it was all some glitch, some misunderstanding, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to do it with proof. I started digging into the ship's security footage, thinking maybe I'd catch her in the act. I wasn't proud of the sneaking around, but I was desperate. When I finally got the footage, I saw her sneaking out of her cryopod late at night, whispering to someone, then slipping into the maintenance corridor. The footage was grainy, but enough to see her face. And when I saw Mark, the technician, I felt my stomach turn. She was in there with him more than once. That's when I knew I had to act. I couldn't just sit around and watch her lie her way out of it. I called her into the control room again, trying to keep my voice steady but failing. "Julia, I have the footage. I saw you with Mark sneaking around. You lied about everything. How long has this been going on?" She looked so smug, so dismissive, like she thought she could talk her way out of anything. "Oh, that's just some stupid technical glitch," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting. Mark's just helping me with some repairs. We're not doing anything. You're crazy with your suspicions." But I could see her trembling a little, her confident facade cracking. She was caught and she knew it. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I'd trusted her, given her everything, my love, my life, my future, and she had been cheating on me this entire time. I'd always been the loyal one, the one who tried to keep our marriage alive even when things got tough. And now I find out she's been screwing around behind my back, lying every step of the way. The feeling of betrayal was suffocating, like my chest was tightening and I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, to make her feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. But I held it in mostly because I knew that losing my temper wouldn't help. What crushed me most was her reaction. Instead of breaking down or showing remorse, she just scoffed. "You're just jealous because I don't want to be stuck with you forever. Mark's the real deal. You're just some guy who's too insecure to handle a little fun." Her words cut deep. I realized she'd been using me from the start, stringing me along, pretending to be the perfect wife. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around, having sex with some technician in my own ship, during the most vulnerable moments of my life. I was devastated, honestly. The ship was supposed to be our new beginning, a fresh start for humanity, and I was supposed to be with someone I loved. Instead, I was stuck with this lying, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with cheating on me in the middle of space. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that she could lie so easily. I started to question everything. Was I even married to her? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just some placeholder for her real life? My mind raced, trying to find a solution, some way to fix this mess. But every option seemed worse than the last. I could confront her again, demand answers, kick her off the ship if I had to. Or I could pretend I didn't know, keep my composure, and plan my revenge. I wasn't sure which was worse, losing her or keeping her and living with the lie. But I knew I needed to do something fast. The longer I waited, the more deeply I felt my trust eroding, replaced by a bitter mix of anger and sadness I couldn't shake. I spent the next day locked in my quarters, racking my brain over what to do. Confronting her again seemed inevitable, but I didn't want to do it impulsively. I wanted to catch her in the act, get undeniable proof, and then make her regret every lie she told me. I started thinking about how I could turn this around, how I could use her own lies against her. I wasn't the type to play innocent, but I knew that if I wanted real revenge, I'd need to be smarter, colder. That's when I remembered the ship's log system. There were always ways to manipulate or access data beyond what she was trying to hide. I decided to hack into her cryopod system. If I could get into the back end, I might find evidence of her real activity. I spent hours cracking the security, watching tutorials, bypassing firewalls. It was a gamble, but I was desperate. Finally, I got in. What I saw made my stomach turn again. It wasn't just her sneaking out at night. She'd been actively recording conversations, messaging Mark through the ship's internal network, even saving pictures of herself and him in compromising positions. The logs showed explicit messages, plans to meet outside her assigned hours, and even some deleted footage that I managed to recover. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She lied to my face, convinced herself she was untouchable. She was brazen, arrogant. The worst part was that she thought she could get away with it forever. I printed out everything I had, screenshots, logs, even saved recordings, and I made a plan. I would confront her not just with words but with undeniable proof. I wanted her to see that I knew everything and that I was done being the naive husband. That night I called her into the control room again. This time I didn't hold back. I laid all the evidence on the table, each screenshot, each chat message, each video clip. Her eyes widened, and for the first time I saw real fear in them. She stammered, tried to deny everything, but I had her cornered. "Julia," I said coldly, "I know about Mark. I know you've been lying to me for months. How long has this been going on? How many times?" She looked furious, then quickly changed to a look of pure disdain. "You're insane. You're just paranoid. I was only trying to make you jealous, make you see I don't need you. Honestly, I don't even want to be married to someone like you. This is about me, not you." Her words hit me like a punch. She was trying to turn things around, make me the bad guy now, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I felt this surge of cold determination. I had enough of her lies, her bitchy attitude, her manipulations. She thought she could keep playing me, but I was done. I told her flat out, "You're done. I don't want any part of this anymore. You lied, cheated, and disrespected everything we stood for. If you think I'm just going to forget this, you're dead wrong. I'm done with the marriage." Her face twisted with anger, but I saw the defeat in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught and she couldn't wiggle her way out now. The emotional fallout hit me hard. I was angry, yes, but also heartbroken. I'd loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I was realizing I'd been living a lie. The woman I once believed in had turned out to be someone completely different, someone selfish, manipulative, and unfaithful. I'd never felt so betrayed in my entire life. I wanted to lash out, yell at her, make her feel as small as I felt. But I knew I had to keep my composure. For now, I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I had the proof and the power. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I sat there, staring at the files on the screen, feeling the weight of everything. The ship, our future, the trust I'd lost, all of it seemed to crumble in that moment. I realized I had a choice: forgive her and try to patch things up, or cut my losses and move on. Deep down, I knew what I had to do, but it still hurt like hell. I never expected that my marriage would end this way, especially not in the cold silence of space, with me alone in the control room holding the truth in my hands. After confronting her that night, Julia stormed out of the control room, her face flushed with rage and humiliation. She was screaming at me, calling me crazy, accusing me of spying on her, trying to ruin her reputation. I didn't bother arguing. I knew I had all the evidence, and frankly, I didn't care what she said anymore. The damage was done. That night I sat alone in my quarters, staring at the files I had collected, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about trust, respect, and the fact that I'd been played for a fool. The next morning I made a decision. I wasn't going to just cut her loose and let her go on her merry way, thinking she'd get away with this. No, I wanted to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. I started working on my plan for revenge, something that would hit her where it hurt, but without crossing any lines into violence. I wasn't about that. I just wanted her to understand that betrayal has consequences, especially in a situation like ours, where everything is digital, monitored, and exposed. My plan was simple but effective. I'd leak some of the evidence I had gathered to the ship's security systems, making sure everyone knew exactly what Julia had been up to. I also decided to disable her access to certain ship functions, just enough so she'd feel helpless for a while. I wanted her to realize how fragile her little world had become once her lies were out in the open. I knew it was petty, but in space, sometimes you have to be a little vengeful to get your point across. One of the more calculated moves was to fake an emergency. an alert that would force her into the common area where I would be waiting. I timed it perfectly. The ship's sensors would trigger a false fire alarm, and everyone would have to evacuate to safety stations. I knew Julia would come rushing out of her quarters, trying to check her messages or cover her tracks. That's when I planned to confront her again, but this time with a little more leverage. When the alarm went off, I watched her hurriedly leave her quarters, her face a mask of irritation and panic. I was already waiting in the common area, sitting on the bench, pretending to be engrossed in some data display. She stormed over, furious, trying to act innocent. I just looked at her and said, "You thought you could hide forever, huh? Well, it's over. Everyone knows what you've been up to. The logs are out there and I made sure everyone saw them." Her jaw clenched. She tried to deny it, but I cut her off. "Save it. You've lied enough. You're done here." Seeing her face fall, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and guilt. Part of me wanted to rub it in to make her feel small, but I knew that wouldn't make things better. Still, I couldn't let her keep manipulating everyone, especially not after what she'd done. I wanted her to realize she couldn't get away with betrayal in this tight-knit crew, especially not in space, where secrets are hard to keep and trust is everything. Over the following days, her behavior changed. She became more anxious, snapping at crew members and avoiding me whenever she could. She tried to spin her lies, claiming that everything was a misunderstanding, that I was trying to ruin her reputation, but no one bought it. The ship's security records, the logs, the video footage, everything pointed directly at her. The crew started whispering behind her back, and I saw the looks of judgment in their eyes. It was a small victory, I guess, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside. I still felt betrayed, and I wondered how long I could keep pretending everything was okay. Through it all, I kept my distance. I didn't want to be the guy who destroyed his marriage with petty revenge, but I also couldn't tolerate her lying and cheating. That line had been crossed, and I had to protect myself and what little dignity I had left. I realized that space, this vast, cold universe, wasn't just about exploring new worlds. It was about survival, sometimes emotional, sometimes physical. And right now, I was just trying to survive this heartbreak. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better than someone who thought they could cheat and lie their way out of it. That I'd been through enough. These last few days had shown me who Julia truly was. I didn't want to be the fool anymore. I had to decide whether to keep fighting for what was left of us or to walk away and start over. That was the hardest part, to accept that my marriage might be over, right here, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but the cold silence of space and my own shattered trust as company. The days that followed were a strange mix of numbness and clarity. I kept busy monitoring the ship's systems, making sure she couldn't manipulate anything further. I also started distancing myself emotionally, trying to prepare for whatever came next. Honestly, I didn't see any way back from this. Trust was broken beyond repair, and I wondered how she could look at herself after all the lies. But beneath all that, a small voice in me kept asking if I'd done everything I could, or if I'd let her ruin what little we had left, all because I was too angry to think straight. One afternoon, she finally cornered me in the mess hall. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes bloodshot and her face pale. Her usual bitchy smirk was gone, replaced by a look of desperation. She stood across from me, trying to keep her composure, but I could see she was cracking. "Look," she started, voice trembling, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just bored, okay? The trip, been hell, and Mark, he's the only person who's ever paid attention to me. I didn't think it was a big deal. I swear I loved you. This was just stupid." I stared at her, feeling a strange mixture of disgust and pity. I didn't believe her for a second. That she could lie so easily, so convincingly, made me realize how much damage she'd done. But I also knew I had to hear her out, even if I didn't want to. "And what about the lies, the deception, the cheating? Do you even care how much you hurt me, or is this just some game to you?" She looked down, tears prickling at her eyes. "I didn't want to lose everything. I thought I could get away with it. I was stupid. I was angry, lonely, and Mark made me feel alive again. I know I messed up, but I love you, really. I don't want to lose you. Maybe we can fix this." Hearing her say she loved me made my stomach churn. It was such a cliché, but it also made me realize how much I'd invested in this marriage. that I'd given her everything and she had thrown it all away for a few moments of excitement with Mark. The betrayal cut so deep, I didn't even know if I could forgive her, but part of me wanted to believe she was sincere. Yet another part knew better. I told her I needed time to think, that I couldn't just forgive her overnight. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her, actually. The trust was gone, replaced by a bitter, hollow feeling inside. I didn't want to live in a relationship built on lies anymore. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved, and now I had to figure out what that meant for me, whether to stay and try to rebuild what was broken, or to walk away and leave it all behind. The thing that haunted me most was that I wasn't just angry anymore. I was devastated. That this woman I'd shared so much with had lied, cheated, manipulated. What did that say about me? About us? I'd always believed that love and trust could conquer anything, but in space. Far from everything familiar, I saw how fragile that really was. How easily it could all fall apart with a single lie. As I sat there, staring at her crying in front of me, I realized I was at a crossroads. The betrayal was fresh, raw, and it hurt more than anything I'd ever experienced. But underneath it all, a tiny voice told me I had to decide whether I was going to fight for us or let her go. Either way, I knew I would never see her the same way again. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone who could lie so convincingly, cheat so brazenly, and still expect forgiveness. I didn't know what was worse, her betrayal or my own helplessness to stop it. In the days that followed that confrontation, I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I saw Julia, I saw the lies, the betrayal, the woman I thought I knew turned into someone else entirely. I tried to hold on to some shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, she was truly sorry and that we could somehow rebuild what was. Broken, but deep inside I knew better. Trust was shattered beyond repair, and once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. I made my decision a little after that. No more pretending, no more lies, no more denial. I couldn't stay married to someone who had so completely betrayed me, especially not in this fragile, isolated world we'd worked so hard to reach. I knew that leaving her was the only way forward. The pain was immense, but it also brought a strange sense of clarity. I realized that sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. I slowly started to detach from Julia. I kept my distance, focused on my work, trying to prepare myself emotionally for what was coming. I arranged my belongings, packed a few things, and made plans to leave her behind once we reached the new world. I knew I couldn't stay in space with someone I no longer trusted, someone who had lied and cheated in such an intimate way. It was a hard choice, but I felt it was necessary for my sanity and dignity. When the day finally arrived to reach our destination, I felt the weight of everything I had been through. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the lingering questions about whether I'd ever truly be able to trust again. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was free from the toxic relationship that had poisoned my mind and heart for too long. As we descended toward the new planet, I looked out at the barren, beautiful landscape that awaited us, and I knew it was time for a new beginning. I've learned a lot from this experience. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I've also learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to cut your losses and walk away. Julia was never the person I thought she was, and in space, far from everything familiar, I saw her true colors more clearly than I ever could on Earth. I'll carry this pain with me, but I refuse to let it define me. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: don't ignore the signs. When trust is compromised, don't pretend it's going to fix itself. Be honest with yourself about what you can handle, and don't be afraid to walk away. If that's what it takes to protect your peace. Love is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. Sometimes you have to be brutal with yourself to survive it. Space or Earth, the lesson remains the same. Don't let anyone take your soul and then expect you to stay silent. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away and start over.